Okay, looks like I'm live. Just going to take these headphones off. There's nobody in to talk to at the moment. Oh, and as I do that, Graham arrives. So I will add Graham to the stream in a little bit. So it does look like we are going to have somebody else chatting. I do apologise for the short notice. I'm only doing this tonight because I've been a bit of a lazy so-and-so today and just really not gathered myself together to do a video. And so I felt a bit guilty. So let's have a bit of a stream. Right. Where was I? What's prompted me to do a stream on this topic? I think that's going to be the first thing I'm going to cover. As you will be aware by now, I like old school AD&D modules. And the main reason for that is when I was a kid, I was very, very disorganized. My group was scattered all over the city. So making a cohesive campaign was extremely difficult. Now I'm a lot older. I have a serious sense of nostalgia towards those old stories, which is why I've reviewed all the modules in the way I have on my channel. And I was prompted to do this tonight I was watching, I think it was DM James's video earlier, and I'm not sure his or the others. I mean, I've watched a few today. I've been a very lazy, very lazy old man today. And somebody said that modules are for lazy DMs. Yeah, I suppose some DMs who rely solely on modules when they have got time to do other stuff can be described as lazy. But I switched my group over to first edition AD&D, mainly for the purpose of playing some of these old adventures, the ones I had that nostalgia for. And at the time I was DMing for them, when we first started, I had a day job. I was training 2 or 3 nights a week at judo, and I was hosting 2 or 3 pub quizzes as well every week. So I had between 4 and 6 nights already booked up, as well as taking my kids to judo and taking my kids to football and all that sort of stuff, and a day job. And that left me 1 or 2 nights to prepare. And in order to do it properly, I need a bit more than that. So modules were almost necessary. And I wouldn't describe that as laziness at all, because I was setting the time aside in a busy schedule to actually DM for a group. Anyway, the other reason for the topic tonight is somebody did comment on a video of mine or a stream of mine that they'd like me to talk about adapting modules and bringing modules in to link them together, to make a campaign out of them. How do I adjust them? And how do I link them together? So that's one thing I want to talk about. But I am now going to bring Graham in. I'm going to put my headphones on so I can hear him.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hello, Graham. Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yeah,
Graham,
hi, John.
Hello. Graham is one of the players in the Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh game that I started on Saturdays. We played last Saturday, didn't we?
That's right, yeah.
Enjoy it?
Good game. Yeah, enjoyed it. Yeah.
Good. Excellent. Right. I will come to you for your opinions at some point, but you'll have to excuse me because I'm gonna start off with a bit of rambling myself first.
No problem.
That's okay. Right. So when I was putting this campaign made out of old school modules together, there were a couple of low-level adventures that I couldn't introduce straight away or with that particular group because one of my players had recently played them. So I kicked it off with the UK5 Eye of the Serpent. It's a great little adventure for a small group. And at that time, we hadn't got a full group of players due to families growing. Best way to describe it. One of the players had just had a baby, and another player wasn't available for the first session. And so UK5, being designed for a small group, was ideal. My group played through that. And one of the nice thing about that is you can put it almost anywhere because it begins with the party being essentially kidnapped by a rock and dropped in a nest. So all you do is you have the rock attack them. They pass out while being flown to the nest. They could be being flown for hours and hours and hours. They have no idea where they are. So suddenly they're dropped in a nest up a mountain in the middle of nowhere. So all those people who love player backgrounds, that sort of throws all of those straight out the window because they just dropped in the middle of nowhere and they don't know where they are. They have to get off. They have to get off the mountain. I adapted that module a little bit because that module is designed to have one character who is a ranger or a monk or a druid, and it's got these paths in the module based on whether you've got a monk, a ranger, or a druid. My party had a monk and a druid. So I just opened up all the paths, let them roam, let them wander, and gave them the freedom. Took about 3 sessions to play. It's not a long module, took about 3 sessions to play. And when they were leaving the area of the adventure, leaving freedom, the first settlement they came to was Homlet. So that's an easy segue from one module into the next. Use it to a wilderness module. It could be anywhere, and then they're just wandering away from the module, just over whatever terrain is there, and they come across a village, and that village is the village of Homlet. So of course, then we played the village of Homlet. A couple of the party got to level 2. And a few added a few more characters to the party. So we went into the village of Homlet with a party of level 1 and level 2 characters. And the village of Homlet is a challenging little adventure. They were doing all right. They cleared the top half of the moat house. And then they went downstairs. And they missed quite a lot of stuff down there. And somehow managed to find their way to Lareth and his goons very, very quickly. And they weren't ready for it at all and got battered, absolutely battered. One of the second level characters was killed. And quite a few of the first level characters didn't get enough XP now to gain a level. A few of them did. I mean, the party was now mostly level 2, but still some level 1s. And I wanted to run UK2, the Sentinel, next, but they weren't strong enough. So they went back to they went back to Homlet. They healed up. They then went back to the moat house. And I thought to myself, what would Lareth do now that he's been discovered and some of his defenses have been removed? He'll leave. He's in a hidey hole. His hidey hole has been discovered. He'll leave. He'll take his closest, most loyal people with him, and of course a lot of the treasure. So when they got back to the moat house and went downstairs, they found it had been cleared out. And I thought, right, okay, Lareth will have how am I going to get them to the Sentinel and its sister module, the Gauntlet? So I thought, well, the fact that they'd lost to Lareth was an opportunity here. And I had Lareth leave behind some documents that he had tried to burn and not succeeded in burning all of them. And one of them mentioned a mysterious black glove, the Gauntlet, and an idea of where it could be found. So that was the little seed I dropped in to take the party over to the next 2 modules. But they were still not strong enough. They told me at this point they wanted to try and renovate the moat house. So I thought, okay, I need to give them something else to work with, something else to help them beef themselves up. I need to get them all to at least level 2, and maybe find a few items that can help them, because otherwise they're going to struggle. So I had an emissary from a local lizardman tribe from the marshes nearby come and ask for help. And here I threw in the extra encounter from U2, Danger at Dunwater, the one with the panlung and the crocodile, which has got a nice little treasure there, to help try and boost the party up. And it did. Yes, another character died, but that meant another character starting at first level for the Sentinel. But the rest of the party were now level 2 or 3 and had got some items, and they'd got a little seed to take them over towards the Sentinel. I'll come back to my rambling in a bit. Graham, do you fancy chipping in? Do you fancy?
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Okay.
Just checking you can hear me. My mic is a bit dodgy.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you just fine.
I've been doing this myself, and I also found the same thing that you found, that player groups will need a boost to get them up to the levels needed to meet the new monsters in the new in the rest of the campaign. And this is one of the things you have to be quite careful of when you're looking at modules that may form a part of a larger campaign in a wilderness. It's all about the balance between the monsters and creatures that are found and the players, assuming that the DM is using a natural progression to experience and levels, which I prefer. So I also found that I had to add extra encounters and even an extra module because one of the things I was working on was I could see that the next encounters were going to be too tough in order for the players to complete the campaign. I didn't want it to be. I wanted it to be a challenge rather than a suicide mission. So I found that as well. And as for the lazy DM criticism, I just think some of the ideas in the early modules are so good. You would. I want to play them, and why not play them in a larger campaign where you get that sense of space that was introduced in the expert set wilderness adventures. And I think some of the modules do knit together quite well to perform a large campaign. There has to be a balance between the amount of preparation you expect a DM to do, and on the other hand, the player's sense of space, where in theory they could travel north, south, east, or west, but in practice, if you want a good quality game or a more enjoyable game, the dungeon master is going to have to spend some time thinking and preparing, what is in those different locations. So I think there's balance needed, really.
Well, yeah, I mean, and of course the DM just you drop little nuggets to guide them along the way, don't you? Just sort of,
yeah.
And of course you can always move a module. You might have planned it to be to the south, and if they go north, well, that's where it is now.
Yeah.
It's oldest trick in the book, but it still works. So, what modules have you been running and linking together?
I looked at the Keep of the Borderlands, and when I played that originally in the 80s, when you get the one-page map of the keep and the Cave of the Unknown and the Caves of Chaos and the river, I always wanted to know where that road led, and a bit of searching on the internet. When I came back to D&D, I found Mike's World had made a module called the Forsaken Wilderness, where he's extended that one-page map into 15 maps. So you can now go down that road and see what is down there, and he's got some ideas for a whole campaign based on retrieving some gems, it's basically an alliance that has broken down, and the players are meant to gather together clues throughout this wilderness, and it's just a fantastic extension to B2, which we all know, and most of us really enjoyed that module. And
what was that extension called again?
It's called The Forsaken Wilderness by Mike's World.
I'll pop that in chat. There we go.
Okay, yeah.
So that's just almost a reminder to myself to have a little look at it sometime.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
And I know when I think you mentioned in Discord earlier something about using the Isle of Dread as well.
Yeah. So that's kind of a more ambitious project, because the Isle of Dread's quite big anyway, and with it being an island, I suppose players could literally sail north, south, east and west, and depending on which world you've put the Isle of Dread in, that's another one where there's going to have to be some agreement between the prep the DM does, because it can be wilderness adventures, it can be, you could probably make a whole module regarding various pirate encounters. There might be continent to the south. I've put it in Mastara, but other people like to put it in Greyhawk, Isle of Dread. So it's kind of it's been quite interesting, and I just really enjoy that adventure. Anyway, the module itself, Isle of Dread, I think is a great module.
And of course, there are a number of published modules that would mesh very nicely with the Isle of Dread, with minimum fuss, such as Dwellers of the Forbidden City is just perfect to drop right in the middle of the island.
Right. I'll have a look at that. That's an idea for me to look at.
It's a jungle sandbox.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I was thinking Drums on Fire Mountain, and where the characters can sail from another port, Thyatis. There's the War Rafts of Kron, and there's Isle of the Ape for a bit further on, 12th to 15th levels.
Yeah, so a lot further on Isle of the Ape. Isle of the Apes, it's a very high level, but I mean, I haven't read many of the modules after X5 in the Expert series, so I don't know War Rafts of Kron very well. I don't know Drums on Fire Mountain very well.
Right.
After I played X4 and X5 when I was young, that's about the time I switched over to AD&D, so I never really went down the Expert route for the later Expert modules. I know some of my friends were getting those, but I was more interested in the AD&D adventures. And yes, and
I like the Isle of Dread module has some. It has the wall separating the rest of the island and the dinosaurs from the villages. It also has some obelisks, and I like the idea of an ancient builder race concept that players could explore when they become higher levels. So there's some clues on the island. This architecture, the natives say they were built by the gods, but the characters can explore the island and find further clues, and that's another possible hook.
I mean, Dave Mills has said here, Hidden Shrine fits on the Isle easily. That's Hidden Shrine of Tomoa-chan. And when I go back to my campaign that I ran, I will mention how I meshed that in, but that would fit inside the Dwellers of the Forbidden City on the Isle of Dread. Both of those would fit
Right.
lovely.
Yeah.
But that's a Mesoamerican themed one, which again fits the idea of an ancient civilization.
Yeah, very well, because you have the stepped pyramids already there in
Yes,
in the written
yes.
Isle of Dread.
Yes. Right. Let's have a look at some of the comments. Gregory wants to watch us play a game, record a session, and/or live stream. I don't think we're at that sort of level at all yet. Our game on Saturday night was just a friendly 3 hours playing entirely through Discord, theatre of the mind, and just a gentle game under no pressure. And I think streaming it would put us under a little bit of pressure. So it was the first time most of us had spoken to each other as well. So we really had to get to know each other as well. So,
Yeah.
Sadly,
I'm going to use the G series of modules as an ideas for after the Forsaken Wilderness, because where I put it in Mastara, there was an old trade route from where I put the keep on the Borderlands up to Ularum, the desert, the desert region, and I thought the mountains between the desert would be a good place to put that G series of modules.
Yeah. I mean, the G series is. Anyone's seen my review of it? They are an absolutely fabulous series of modules that deserve to be dropped into any campaign at the upper levels. They are so flexible, so challenging, and I love them to bits.
I suppose that's the good thing about these 32-page modules. They're basic enough that you can put them into different campaigns without having to, micromanage them.
Yeah. That's the whole point of them. That's why they're called modules, isn't it? They are modular.
Yeah.
It's like you need something for your campaign. Here's something for the right level. Drop it in. Good to see. Cody here is doing the same. Running 3 different groups at different points of their campaign, stitched together in a similar way. Yeah, exactly. Right, Adam has asked a question here. And I've been thinking about ever since this one appeared. I've been thinking about this one. Hardest modules to adapt, easiest from the first edition line. I would say it's very, very subjective as to what is the hardest to adapt. I would say anything that doesn't fit the current tone of your campaign. I run a very sort of very medieval campaign, so I think Ravenloft wouldn't have fitted in very well in that campaign. Plus, there's the difficulty of it. I don't know. I mean, other ones that are hard to adapt. Possibly Queen of the Demon Web Pits, because it's probably my own opinion that it's not very good as well. The easiest to adapt for me are any of the sandbox ones, as long as you've got the right sort of terrain to drop them in. Something like the village of Homlet is probably the easiest module to adapt in existence. You just need to put a village somewhere, and here's a moat house, and here's a few people, and off you go. I can't think of anything easier than that. I mean, obviously there's others that link together well. There's the Lendor Isles series work very well together with the Saltmarsh series. Again, very easy to adapt. Anyhow, I'm going to move on with my campaign. My group went and did UK2, the Sentinel. And by this point, I was starting to realize that they really weren't strong. They were quite new to AD&D, and the party really wasn't strong enough for these modules. They got absolutely battered in UK2, but survived, and got very, very lucky to find a secret entrance to get to the end of the adventure, which is actually in the adventure. That I didn't have to put it in there to help them. They got very, very lucky. They found it. They found what they needed. And I was thinking, right, they're all about 3rd level now. Some of them are 4th level. The Gauntlet is the next one. They would have had absolute. I don't know how familiar people are with the Gauntlet, but at level 3 or 4, they'd have had no chance whatsoever. So while heading between the Sentinel and the Gauntlet, I had them attacked on the moorlands by a memory web, which is the introduction to UK4, When a Star Falls, which is a beautiful adventure, absolutely beautiful adventure. They just about got through that. I did have to be very generous towards the end and allow their diversion tactic of a certain encounter then to work, otherwise they'd have been absolutely cremated. And I still needed to give them something more for the Gauntlet. So this is where I brought the village of Homlet back into play, because Lareth was still alive and the party were now all about level 4. He'd beaten them up. Brian, do you want to come in? Nod? Yes, because Brian was playing in this campaign.
Yeah.
Here's Brian. He was playing in this campaign. Do you remember it well?
I remember bits and pieces of it. You know my memory, John. I've slept since then.
Yeah. Well, on the road between When a Star Falls and the Gauntlet, I had them encounter Lareth and his surviving people. And this gave them a big testing encounter to deal with somebody who had kicked their backsides when they were 1st or 2nd level to get their revenge, and thus get a bit more experience, a bit more loot, and hopefully challenge them. And they took on Lareth, his lieutenants, sergeants, about 20 of his soldiers, his loyal bugbears, and I think the party took in total about 6 points of damage from the entire combat.
Yeah, we either did it really, really well, or we never got any damage, or we just got massacred. There was never an in-between with that.
There was never an in-between, no. And that was one where you took out Lareth by using a folding boat and ventriloquism.
Yes, and poison. We did poison him as well.
And you poisoned him, yes. And then the Cavalier just charged into the middle of the pile of surprised soldiers, and all hell broke loose.
Yeah.
And your druid entangled the bugbears.
Yeah.
See, I remember all these things.
Which
got you ready.
Forget dropping a boat on somebody.
Yeah. And now, so by now, the whole party were about level 5, which was perfect for the Gauntlet. So you see how I'm linking adventures together and trying to do it organically based on what the party have done and what has happened, and to give them a reason for everything happening. So the Gauntlet was fantastic, as it always is. And then on the way back, because of course it's still a long way away from the moat house, on the way back, they took a boat back to Verberbonk, near where the moat house is, and a couple of players were missing again. So as a one-off session, I had them dock on an island, and it happens to be the island where the module UK1 Beyond the Crystal Cave is set. And the players who were available for that session played through that module. That was the one, if you remember it, Brian, the one you go into a magical garden and you're greeted by the leprechauns.
Yes.
And where the satyrs had their way with Jordan. Yes. Yeah. You know it well. It was a highly entertaining adventure. I love the module. I reviewed it and gave it about 7 out of 10 because I accept its flaws, but I absolutely love the adventure. But it just slipped in very nicely into that part of the campaign, and it gave me an excuse to give one of the characters an artifact to guide them away from slightly trollish, stupid, neutral behavior towards being good.
Yeah, I think we decided we decided at one point that there was a trick to crossing the bridges, and there wasn't. We just decided, oh, you can't cross the bridges twice, or you have to cross them in a certain order.
Yeah.
And
apart
Yeah,
from
I
that
remember
little
that one.
notation, though, you were very direct with it, and you did pretty well.
Mhm.
The next one after that, they all got back to the moat house, and it was time for I1, Dwellers of the Forbidden City. So, of course, it's a jungle adventure, and the moat house is in a temperate region. So I changed it and put it in a forest, the forest that's to the east of village of Hamlet, and the name of that forest escapes me at the moment. And I sort of framed it by they were trying to set up trade routes between the moat house and Hamlet and the east, and they were trying to reopen an old trade route through the forest, and traders were being attacked. So you went along to sort that out. Yep. And as you were poking around in the Forbidden City, you all fell into a collapsed in through a poking around a ruined temple, and you all fell and landed in the hidden shrine of Tomoe-chan.
We did.
Which I then had to adapt because you weren't prepared for it.
Nope.
It's a tournament adventure with a poison gas mechanic for higher level characters than you were, and so I had to tone down the poison gas. But again, it's adapting the modules for the party. It's dropping the modules in a natural way, and trying to get them in such a routine, in such a flow, that the campaign doesn't get stale. There are changes of pace. You've got the sandbox nature of Dwellers of the Forbidden City. You've got the story style of Beyond the Crystal Cave, and you've got the tournament module of Hidden Shrine of Tomoe-chan, one after the other. 3 very, very different modules, and it keeps the whole game feeling fresher, I think.
That's a great idea, because the Isle of Dread, as being fantastic, it is a bit of a slog if players not a slog, but it is a long campaign that's that's taken many months of game time, if you like, not real time. So change of scenery or freshening things up, I think that's a great idea for these long campaigns.
Yep. So Brian, do you have a favorite adventure that we went through in that campaign? The ones you remember?
No, I can't say I have a particular favorite of them. There was always like the odd moment, things that you wish we'd gone back and done and spent a bit more time on and never really did, because we had sort of like our party was was brilliant at having cross purposes over the silliest things. Sort of like James and Richie were very chaotic in their approach to some things, but at the same time could be the most logically, and you'd be able to get something going, well, how does that work? Sort of like in the Forbidden City, there was a talk of what the the bullywugs were doing, and the king bully, and we never even touched on it. We just stayed with the mongrel men, did the shrine, killed the wizard, and left. There was lots of different places that could have been done, but we never really went into.
That's part of the joy of a sandboxy adventure. That it's an area to roam, and yes, you engaged with the mongrel men and forged a sort of an alliance with them, a place to stay, and we had one of the characters. It's in the adventure where they wrestle the chief of the mongrel men, and that sort of thing. And I remember that being a fun session.
It was, yeah.
Then after C1, Hidden Shrine of Tomoe-chan, everyone went back to the moat house. A little bit of rest and recuperation, and by now everyone's about level 6-ish. So it was time for a random stranger to turn up and blag the party into doing what he wanted them to do. And he double-crossed them a little bit, but it got them all to... I did this by means of a interdimensional portal. It's a very lazy way of doing it, but it's the suggested alternative start in the Desert of Desolation series. I used to start from the super module to get them into Desert of Desolation, which I ran on I think it was a different plane of existence. So they were just completely detached from the main world, off and stuck on the Desert of Desolation for the next 3 adventures. It was I thought it was a bit clumsy, but I couldn't think of another way of taking them across there. But of course, I3, I4, and I5 are a series by themselves. But it's not a series without issues, because Tracy Hickman completely ignored anything to do with training and leveling rules. He didn't put in enough treasure there to get characters of that level, those expected levels, up through the levels fast enough to gain the power that was needed in I5 compared to I3. So I had to make adjustments to the treasure, and I added an extra little interlude between I3 and I4 as well, to again give more treasure, to make sure the party are at the right level to go into the Lost Tomb of Martek. Rubbish adventure, but it's all right. It's yeah, my review of it said it all. But again, it's tweaking modules based on how the party are approaching them, and of course what they find along the way. Most adventures have got the right amount of XP to gain a level. It's just that I3, 4, 5 series haven't really. But while the modules have got enough in, the party aren't always going to find it all, which is what happened in the Village of Homlet. You didn't find all of the treasure in there, didn't get all the XP you could have done. So that's why I had to adapt it there. I'm rambling, but I've got to the end of my section of notes here. So let's have a little look at some of the scattered all jungle themed modules across my own jungle sandbox, both D&D. Yep. So you've got Bone Hill in there. You've got Against the Cult of the Reptile God. You've got Dwellers of the Forbidden City, Isle of Dread, and Tomb of Horrors, which I gather Tomb of Horrors would be the one that ends the campaign after all of that effort. But yes, they are meant to be linked together. Somebody else asking for an actual play. Maybe one day. We'll see. Yeah, look, when I do the stream,
that's a lot of work.
I'm doing this purely through StreamYard. I have absolutely no idea how to use the streaming software that allows all the screen sharing and all that sort of stuff. Maybe someone can give me a tutorial on how to do it, but I haven't got a clue. And I don't really have much interest in learning. I might have to one day. Let's look at the next one. Hank says, one of my groups just finished B2 by way of being employed by the merchant caravan in B2. I plan to have them run into... Oh, that's a jump. That's a big jump. Tomb of the Lizard King is damn hard. It's for levels 5 to 7 and the upper end of 5 to 7. I'm wondering how much you're going to have to put in between those two adventures to get them there. But if you can get them to the level that's needed, yeah, fine. I've never run Tomb of the Lizard King, though.
I like the idea of just taking one line from a module like the Merchant Caravan in B2 and then expanding that and seeing where that leads. That also links to the Forsaken Wilderness, where in the castle in the keep, the Castellan has an advisor, and it turns out that advisor has a brother, and that links to the Alliance campaign. I'm sure every module's got hundreds of these possible one-liners, half a sentence that you could just use as a link to another module.
Well, that was the beauty of a lot of those old adventures, where they didn't rely on a heavy-handed story. It's basically a location with lots of little descriptions in there that you could use or not use however you wanted. And adventures like Steading the Hill Giant Chief, there's so many little nuggets in there that can develop a side adventure. You've got the prisoners, you've got that dodgy temple, you've got the presence of giants from other tribes, all of which can be used to build.
I was going to say, I know there's lots of little, loads of just little things that we ran into in that first one, the Hill Giants. Just, you could have run away from the campaign just by following one set of giants out as we let them leave.
Well, yeah, because I mean, the plan you used eventually to get in involved most of the giant emissaries leaving because you caused mayhem. Yeah.
So that was quite fun, that was. And sneaking into the kitchens and doing everything else.
Right, Cody says here, made choices based on the 2004 Dragon Greatest modules. Based on, okay. Yeah, you can connect those together. B2 to N1. Yeah, there's a bit of a jump up to X2, but there is a healing mechanic in there which makes it possible. There's a lot of XP in X2, which gets you ready for I3, 4, 5. WG4, I would put S4 with WG4 and combine the two together. And then, of course, the Giant series. But I do have a bit of a bee in my bonnet about that poll. There are a couple of videos on my channel about why I don't think that poll was a very good indication of what the real greatest modules were, because it was an industry poll. It was backslapping. It was people within the industry voting for their mates, in my opinion.
You wouldn't know which part of the sample they used. You have to be very, very careful with doing large polls over large numbers of people, I think. I
mean, my response to reading that eventually, I mean, I was in a number of AD&D Facebook groups, and I decided to do my own poll, and it was just basically people who used an AD&D Facebook group who were voting on a total of 95 AD&D modules, going through stages of selection to try and work out which one was the most popular. It's not the best module, but which is the most popular one in the group, amongst people in the group, and hundreds and hundreds of people voted. And S4, the Lost Caverns of Sojkanth, came first, followed by White Plume Mountain. So that's what the fans thought.
I mean, if a poll just generates ideas for linking modules together, then fair enough. We have to get our ideas from somewhere.
Of course we do. Yeah. I mean, and I'm not going to say. I mean, the modules that Cody has listed there, then none of them are bad. So you can make a very flexible, very entertaining campaign using that sequence of modules. My contention is with the poll focusing too heavily on super modules. I thought it was lazy. It's like, let's just bundle them all together and only include the super modules, when some of those super modules had good bits and bad bits. Look at the Slavers one, for example, where A1's great, A4's great, A2's all right, A3's terrible. it's as simple as that.
Don't start him off again. I am his player, and the amount of times he's gone on about slavers.
Yeah, you know my opinion on that module. Yes.
Yeah.
But Cody went on to say the hardest to adapt is definitely D1 because of there is a huge amount of work to fill those Underdark maps. though I think once you're in the underground section, those caverns and warrens are quite easy to drop in a lot of areas. But Q1, I do think Q1 is very, very hard to just simply adapt into any campaign because it's set on the abyss and you're fighting
Right,
live.
I'm the 5e idiot here, so which one's D1 and Q1?
Right. Q1 is the Queen of the Dim Web Pits.
Yeah, that's where I want to go when I finish my Out of the Abyss storyline.
Be careful with that.
No.
D1 is Descent into the Depths of the Earth. You've not played it.
No,
it was the one we were going to play after the Fire Giants one. But you know what the Fire Giants did. No, you never started D1. Your thief is at the start of it, but the rest of the party never got to find him.
Fair enough.
And Adams replied, yes, D1, unless you take the side tunnels out. Yeah. I would agree with that. There's running a campaign in Greyhawk, Shaldemar Valley. I put I2, the Lizard King, in the Hull Marshes. Yep, so that'll be close to Saltmarsh, yes. Putting B2, Borderlands in Bissell, and Saltmarsh series in the Hold of the Sea Princes. Oh, the Hull Marshes, is that? Am I thinking the wrong ones there? No. Hold of the, I mean, UK 2 and 3 are by default set in the Hold of the Sea Princes. I think Saltmarsh is by default set a little bit up the coast, but they're easy to link together. And of course, the Saltmarsh can be put anywhere. Any little seaside town can be Saltmarsh. It's so easy. But same with Keep on the Borderlands. All you need are Borderlands and a keep. There you go.
Yeah.
It's dead easy to drop in anywhere. And that was the beauty of a lot of the old adventures. It's called to the Reptile God in Hull Marshes. That's right there. Yeah. Campaign I'm planning right now in the Yeomanry, Hold of the Sea Princes, Cult of the Reptile God in the Hull Marshes, followed by the Sentinel and the Gauntlet, then the Night Below. Yeah. All well and good, but you have the issue of how many characters are going to survive alive from the Cult of the Reptile God. You've played that one, Brian? 6 out of
the town's turning.
The town's turning. Yes, 6 out of the 10 characters that you had between you died.
Yeah, we lost a few.
Yes, you did indeed. You did indeed.
And that was with bonus help as well.
Oh, yeah. You were all first level. In order for first level characters to be successful in that one, the DM has to adapt it and has to make sure that the various NPCs are willing to lend a hand. Otherwise, you're going to just get obliterated. Cody contributing nicely tonight. Yep, that series, Desert of Desolation Super Module version, is one of the worst starts and endings to any module I know. I think the intro in the Super Module is better than the one in Pharaoh, which was appalling. But it's right. The ending is shocking, and the editing was terrible as well. It's a shame because the subject matter of I3 and I4, Pharaoh and Oasis of the White Palm, are both fantastic, but it's just they didn't sort out the issues with other things. I don't know if Cody was there when I did a stream pretty much entirely on super modules, and that was generally my conclusion.
Desert Desolation. I just finished with the two genies and Jin just going to war, and then the players are just ignored, basically, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, the whole idea is you release Martek, who then fights the Afriti.
And then just sort of like it's like a curtain comes down. It's like return next week, and then you never return next week.
Yeah, it's quite a pathetic ending to a long series, which has some great high points.
Yeah.
And
I mean, the end of that is a good jumping in point for something, but it just, as an ending, it's a poor one in my opinion.
It is. I'm just racking my brains to what module we went into after that. White Plume Mountain. When you got back to the moat house after that, I introduced you to Bigby, who was visiting, who wanted some help. That was to make sure you didn't keep the weapons that were in White Plume Mountain for yourselves.
Yeah, to be fair, we probably would have tried.
And after White Plume Mountain, Lost Caverns of Sojkanth, and there was no way you're going to keep the lantern in that either, because Bigby wanted that. And then
so
from
give
there,
us all these legendary artifacts and then took them off us.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course. Because
and then complained that we weren't strong enough to go into another campaign.
No, you were strong enough to play the modules around those sort of levels. So your party was mostly about 8th level now, and you were going into Lost Caverns of Sojkanth and Forgotten Temple of Thariston. 8th level is absolutely bang on for those.
I do remember getting my head on a tentacle rod.
That was in G3. You went into G1, did that easy enough. G2 started to stutter a little bit, and G3 was just carnage. And yes, you had
that was fun. I managed to flood out a fire giant cavern and just make them trump through mud. That was great fun.
That's what turned the battle in the end. Transmute rock to mud in a big fire giant lair. But that's how I linked a long list of classic modules together. A lot of them didn't need much work to link and didn't need all that much adaptation, because these are the classics. These are the tried and tested modules. These are ones that generally work at the right level. And you only need to adapt things slightly based on the requirements of your party at the time. And that for me was just a case of slightly increasing or reducing treasure, or just throwing in a little interlude along the way, just little things to tie them together. Nothing out of this world, nothing revolutionary. And half the time it was an hour's work or less just to make the changes that were needed, just to tie things together. And a lot of it was done on the fly, improvised, based on what the group were doing.
Yeah.
Anything to add then, Graham?
I mean, I agree with the. It's all an element of balance when you talked about parting players from their magic items that they've picked up in a previous. I suppose a balanced adventure is what is what everyone is after, really.
Yeah. One thing
you don't want something that's not a challenge. I mean, the continuity, if you like, is something you have to watch out for when you're stitching modules together, and also on the compatibility with the maps as well, because a lot of the unofficial maps that you can find on the internet, people have changed them, in certain ways, and you have to kind of draw a line on how much detail you want to go in, just to make sure that there's no, glaring inconsistencies between. I think it is nice to have a map where it gives a sense of space where the party can, explore in different directions.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the resource I tended to use, I have got the original Greyhawk, the original Darlene Greyhawk map, but I used Anna B. Meyer's adaptation of Greyhawk quite a lot.
Right.
She's I don't know if people are familiar with that. She's taken Greyhawk and added. It's almost like a Google Earth version of Greyhawk. It's absolutely magnificent to the level of detail that she's put in there. There were things associated with her own game and some Greyhawk stuff that came out throughout the editions that have all been plugged in. So you've got to be a little bit careful with that. But the level of detail in that map it's superb and it's presented beautifully.
Yeah. For Mastara, there's unofficial gazetteers, and some of them are done really, really well, and they've all got their own maps, and they've just even if it's just for story hooks, or you take one sentence of it, but some of them are really well researched, well written, fantastic maps. Some of the official gazetteers have some really good ideas. For example, the Adventurers Club, the Karamikos Adventurers Club, and that's that could start off any level 1 campaign. Group of players, meet, respond to a notice on a notice board in a town, and off they go. There's some great ideas there.
I mean, I've heard a lot of good things about those gazetteers. I'd pretty much switched entirely to AD&D when they came out, so I never ended up buying them. But I mean, so I played in Greyhawk. I know people have a lot of good things to say about Mystara, and it's just depended which line took your fancy at the time. For me, Greyhawk and those modules, but I've seen people say a lot of good things about those gazetteers. There was about 10 of them, wasn't there?
Yeah, they're really, really detailed on their particular province, and then there's some of the unofficial ones which you kind of fill in the gaps, if you like. I've seen them go for sizable sums of money on eBay as well. Right.
30 to 40 quid a pop typically for those now. So if you've got multiple copies in good condition, you can fill your boots. Adam says GDQ is still his favorite of all. I would say GD, but not the Q. The GD bit is fantastic. The Q's, no, it isn't.
John, we have got a question here of, have we ever done the Forest Oracle?
I'm coming to that in a bit. I've left that one. I left that one on purpose.
Yes, I know.
Michael, the dungeon from Pharaoh is absolutely brilliant. It is a fantastic dungeon. There's so much to criticize the module Pharaoh for, but you can't criticize the dungeon. The dungeon in it is one of the ultimate. It is just. It's AD&D dungeon delving at its finest. It's brilliant. It's really, really imaginative, and that was Tracy Hickman at his best. He was capable of doing things like that. I just wish he hadn't been so heavy-handed and railroady with a lot of the other stuff he did. Now, I've never seen the 3.5 edition Ravenloft super module, but to run them through Mordenkainen's Fantastic Adventure again, I've read bits of. I don't own it though. Dodgy PDF, and it's not one I know very well. So again, it is an example of linking things together. I was out of the hobby when 3.5 was in, so I don't own a single item 3rd edition, 3.5 or 4th edition. I don't think I ever will, because everything I want to get is so expensive now. I'm not going to have any money left after I've finished my 1st edition collection. I wish they'd done more hex crawls to link those super modules together. Yes, AD&D has a lack of hex calls. There were a few wilderness adventures, but the traditional hex call was poorly supported. There's only one adventure I can think of, other than well, Isle of Dread, a hex call, but there was Quagmire for the X series, which really wasn't very good. But it was supposed to be like a lesson in writing a hex call. It didn't do a very good job of it. They needed to do more of them and better ones to get everything linked together. Right, here we go. Right, Bromos, wash your mouth out with soap. N1 is not the Forest Oracle. N1 is against the cult of the reptile god. So N2 is the Forest Oracle, because I'm a nerd and I know these things. I
Be pleasant, John.
I'm guessing you've watched my video on the worst AD&D module of all time. Look, a good DM can take pretty much any module and make it enjoyable. But that doesn't make, just because a good DM can do that to a module, it doesn't make that module good. And the only thing that's good about the Forest Oracle is the fact, I said in my video about it, the fact that the color is a nice shade of green. That is it. There's nothing else about that module that has anything positive about it whatsoever. It's badly written. It's a railroad. It's illogical. It's
I have read it. I have read it since sort of like we had the first discussion about it, and there's not a lot of logic there.
No, there isn't. No, there isn't. It's
absolutely
abysmal.
There's some beautiful ideas in there, but just very badly done. There's some things I would have. There are some bits I would have liked to have, but sort of like I like the what is it? Is it one poor bloke's been made to fall unconscious, and is it? I can't remember what did it. Was it a dryad or an elf who makes him fall?
Look. Right. He's unconscious because he has drunk the waters from the lake. Okay. You wake him up by shaking him. That is it. That's how you break the enchantment. You shake him awake.
But that's what I'm saying. So, like, some of the things for it are so ridiculous.
And then
but if they actually
gives you the antidote for the curse that she put on the lake that made him go to sleep, and yet she was desperate that she couldn't wake him up, but she had the antidote all along.
But those pieces there could be quite good, but how they've done it is just awful.
Oh, the whole idea of a cursed waters in a lake sending people to sleep. That's fine, but the way it's put in the adventure is just.
There's lots of little garbage. Bits that they never expanded on or did really poorly.
I haven't read the module, but I'm just thinking I like the idea of an oracle in a forest to use as a tool to give players a bit of guidance or a bit of a prompt if there was a need to steer them around a particular wilderness, to kind of, if they were straying on off track, they could go back to the oracle, and that would give them a clue as to where to look next.
The first campaign I ever ran Brian through, there was a druid in the forest who in a demi-plane who was keeping the forest safe, and he was a guide at the start of the adventure. And that whole idea of having a guide in the forest, an oracle in the forest, it's great. But N2, the Forest Oracle, didn't do it like that at all. It didn't do it. No, it didn't do that at all. You've got to rescue from. You've got to basically. There's a curse on the land, and the druids can help, but you've got to sort of persuade them to help.
Isn't it gypsies who curse that, and if you catch up to them, they apologise and say this is how to undo it anyway? Yeah,
basically, I think so. Yeah.
From what I remember.
The whole thing is just nonsense from start to finish. Anyway, I'm sure Bromos was putting that in as just a bit of a troll attempt because. Okay. in the first edition Dungeon Master's Guide, there is a map. And just a couple of rooms are statted out. I must have used it about 10 times in my teens, and I think every first edition DM out there will have used that map. It is just, yes, it's just a classic.
The good thing about using an artifact in a campaign, I suppose, is the properties of the artifact can be revealed to the players as time goes on, to expand the story.
I've never really done that with to expand a story as such, but I have. There's a few times I've dropped in artifacts, unique weapons that grow with the characters. And I think it's a great way to get the characters, get the players invested in developing the characters. But as I mentioned earlier, I mean, Brian and I, James in our group, from time to time he could mess about a little bit, couldn't he?
He could. But he could also come up with some of the. You could just watch the frustration rise off John as James just went, "What if we did this?"
He was very, very good at solving puzzles, very, very creative, but he could troll the session a little bit sometimes. And he was playing a very stupid female dwarf.
Fiona, yes, I remember.
Yes, Fiona, yes. And she was true neutral. And I knew he'd done that just so he could get away with doing stupid stuff. Mm-hmm. So when on completing UK1, the Beyond the Crystal Cave, they're granted some wishes. Now, some of the wishes are used to recover lost player characters and to get the enchantment of the garden broken on the people that have been stuck in there. But they had a couple left. And James, playing his character Fiona, said, "I wish for the bestest hammer ever." Those were his exact words. So he received a little wooden pendant on a leather strap in the shape of a hammer. Then when Fiona gained her next level, became a warhammer. Gained another level, the hammer started speaking. And that hammer was neutral good alignment, much more intelligent than Fiona, was therefore able to dominate Fiona and prevent her from doing stupid things. There we go.
I was going to say, it was up there with Molyneux and sort of like by the end, just to sort of A, to give him something so that he could throw, but B, so John had some modicum of control over him. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And it was done in a way that James didn't seem to really mind or notice.
No.
Which was the best way. And they got a very, very nice artifact as a result. Let's go down these comments. This is what always happens. We always go off on a tangent. Yes, Cody says sparseness of design makes things easy to integrate. That is absolutely correct. Yes, they can be intimidating to prepare, but that's 100% right. You've just got to dive in, though. Be brave, dive in, and be willing to improvise, make things up on the fly. You can over prepare sometimes. I mean, I like to have just 3 or 4 possible maps I can pull out at any one time and just play it from there. Whose phone is that?
That's mine in the background. I'm going to ignore it. I know who it is.
The wife. So yeah, I've played Forest Oracle. Real letdown for me personally. N1 was so good that it made. I think if N1 was average, N2 would still feel lackluster. But yes, N1 was fantastic. No, and you need to be a really good DM to make N2 work. Really, really good DM. You know what? Advancing time 50 years, meeting PCs that went through the dungeons, new monsters that moved in, did some survive? Are the PCs corpses down there still? There'll be some corpses that'll certainly be in G3 and that.
Something fun that I like doing is because my groups play 5e, whereas when I play with John, it's 1e. I will just throw a 1e character who I remember into a random campaign, usually it's sort of like a coffin or sort of like a great ancestor or something. And so sort of like my character who is in the Underdark currently, my 5e campaign is set in the Underdark, and they are going to run into his corpse, which has by now been stripped for very logical reasons. But I do like throwing in 1e to 5e links.
I did something in similar with Call of Cthulhu, if you remember, with Horror on the Orient Express.
Yeah.
Our party went through the Blood Red Fez, which is the prequel in the main box set. Brian's character's head exploded. Mike's character was driven insane, and Jordan's character survived. And then, so we moved 30 or 40 years down the line, and Mike decided to make his original character's nephew. So there's a bit in Horror on the Orient Express where they go into the Dreamlands, and there are various people on that Dreamlands train, sort of in another dimension. And I had Mike's new character meet his old character on that train. I enjoyed that moment. Because of course it's he'd been driven insane and maimed.
Yeah, because by the end it was insane, so that he had to keep going and finding more and more dangerous things to do.
Yes, that was it. That was the insanity he got. That he was driven to seek out as much danger as possible. He was essentially unplayable by that point. They'd been absolutely wrecked by the experiences in the Blood Red Fez. Bramos, if you spent 2 years rewriting the Forest Oracle, I really do feel sorry for you. We've been talking about insanity for the last 2 minutes. That would certainly result in insanity as far as I'm concerned.
See, I started rewriting it because when we were looking at the Forest Oracle, we just had that massive shipment of minis, and I'd ordered an evil dead tree. Yes. I made it so that in my story, the Forest Oracle wasn't the savior of the part. He was actually like a druidic sort of like lich, and he'd been chained to the tree. And all the silly little quests that he'd done around it just slowly weakened the link on it. And they ended up having to fight the Forest Oracle. But I never got around to actually playing that.
Fair enough. Well, you went and bought the Forest Oracle even after I'd warned you against it, didn't you?
I downloaded it, yes. I did sort of find a copy to download and bought it that way, yeah. So,
I suppose if a rewrite generated some good ideas, then something good came of it. If I've not read it, but if you're saying that it's possibly so bad that a rewrite is needed, it's like a blank canvas, if you like.
See, John looks at it as if it's hideous. I look at it like it's Flash Gordon. It's so bad there are good nuggets in there.
Right.
It's for me. I mean, because when I was been reviewing adventures, I try and look at them with a sense of objectivity. Obviously, there's always going to be a balance between objectivity and subjectivity, because people have different opinions about things. But for me, I believe if a module needs rewriting and needs extensive work, if a module is intended to be bare bones and be developed and provide solid bones, then it's good. It's doing its purpose. the Forest Oracle was presented as an ongoing as one story, and it just didn't work as one story. It needs rewriting. Therefore, yes, it might have some decent ideas in it, but if it needs rewriting like that, then it is, in my opinion, objectively very bad.
Oh yeah, it failed at what it was supposed to do, but for me, it's just provided entertainment and ideas.
Talking about leaving blanks and things like that. Michael's comment here, in fact, the artifact abilities are left blank in the Dungeon Master's Guide. It's brilliant. Yeah, you've got these lists of abilities and artifacts, and they say this artifact will have 1 from that list, 2 from that list, and 1 from that list. And then you can either do them randomly or the DM can pick them, and you can just completely tailor them to the campaign. Going back to James's character, I had one of his characters slowly finding the teeth of Dalvanar throughout the campaign.
Is that what they were in the end? Because I know he had this whole thing if he wanted teeth, didn't he?
Yes, he was slowly finding the teeth of Dalvanar, yes. And I was very careful to make sure they gave abilities that weren't over the top, but were...
Yeah, I was going to say, just constantly rip a tooth out to replace it with the gold one.
Yes.
I think that started just as a chaotic moment. He saw a gold tooth, wanted it, and replaced his own tooth with it.
Yeah, and I made it. I took one of these artifact teeth, and he was
quite happy.
Right. So what we got next? We're coming towards the end of the comments, so there's not as many comments tonight, which means we might get to bed at a sensible hour. The reason I have started the stream earlier tonight is because my wife has to be up for work in the morning, so I can't really go on till midnight here. Yes, there were some great modules, I1, L1, G1, but by default, they're located thousands of miles apart, but you don't have to stick to that. What makes some of those great is they could be dropped almost anywhere. Yes, they did give you places to put them on Greyhawk. They didn't need to stay there. You don't have to follow those plans. They can be wherever the DM wants them to be.
I was going to say, I've had just one session that was wholly roleplay based as they travelled by ship. And it was purely because that week I had nothing to do. So I said, right, we're on the ship. What are you doing? And I just responded to everything they were doing.
Improvised.
Yeah.
Often the best way.
I did find some issue with the distance, and I had to change my my plans when I looked at where possible locations where modules can be put on a map. Some have more flexibility than others, so I just changed my plans. I wrote down the modules that I was interested in and the possible locations, and I saw which were in the same sort of regions. But so I did find it, but nothing that couldn't be fixed with a bit of changing them around.
But obviously, I can see it being difficult. For example, if you're running something around the Isle of Dread, to put the glacial rift of the Frost Giant Jarl in there, because it's a tropical island. But those tend to be the exceptions rather than the rule. Most of the adventures are very temperate in their settings, and you can just tweak a few descriptions to change it. When I ran Dwellers of the Forbidden City, as I said, I ran it in a temperate region in a deciduous forest. Didn't have to be a jungle. So it's the creatures were generally sort of junglish creatures, but I don't think the players noticed. Did you, Brian? No. There you go. There we go. I haven't paid him to agree, by the way.
No, I don't. I do just tend to argue with John. It is quite fun if I do disagree with him.
All right. Praxis, I've got no experience of Gamma World. I don't know if you have, Graham, at all.
I haven't. No.
No. I can't really react to this comment because I'm not a sci-fi fan. So I never went down
Hello.
Gamma World. Albuquerque Starport. I don't know anything about it. Don't know anything about it at all. So we move on to the next one. I think this is the last of the comments. I have a few teeth in my current game too. Fantastic item you can slow roll out. That's precisely why I use them, because they start with quite minor powers, and the powers are dependent on how many teeth you have, not which tooth you have. So it's a case of, if you find one tooth, it's a minor power. Find a second tooth, it's a minor power. Third tooth, it's a minor negative power. Then a fourth tooth might be a better power. Then a fifth tooth might be a severe negative power. Doesn't matter which order you find the teeth, and that's what happens. And so the powers build up the more teeth, and the character can become more insane as well. Yes, and 2 is bad, so I would start and stop writing. Yeah, I would have just stopped. I did learn a lot in the childhood writing. Yeah, but we had time when we were young, didn't we? We had time to do that sort of thing. Yeah. And yet, if you're forced to rewrite something, you are forced to learn a hell of a lot about the game. Ended up with an old treant apple tree, the Oracle. An old treant apple tree as the Oracle.
Nice.
Yes.
Never thought of that route.
Long train running was one of their hits. I wonder if Michael Sang got that. Go to Holly on the Orient Express. But we are at the end of the comments, so it's probably going to be a short stream tonight, unless anyone's got anything to add. I've pretty much gone through everything I wanted to say. I would make the point that it is really easy to link modules together. You do it.
I was going to say, I've done it. I've I linked the Sunless Citadel to the first 5e box you get, which is, I've forgotten the name of it now.
Lost Mines of Phandelver?
Yeah, Phandelver. I just changed out where the Cragmore goblins were set and slapped the Sunless Citadel in there instead.
And you're not an experienced DM by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh God, no. No, don't come to me looking for slick and smooth.
You've only recently started.
I'm the guy you come to when you turn around and go, I have got the craziest idea for a character. I will find you somewhere to put that character.
But yeah, and Brian is the sort of player who does come up with the unusual characters. You're a big guy and you tend to play little people as well.
Most of your characters. I took it sort of like I started off with, because I loved my first character when I first started playing was a half-orc bard, because I loved the line that shopkeepers will hide things from half-orcs when they come into their shop. I also loved the line of everybody loves a bard. So I just loved the idea that this half-orc would come in, but after 2 minutes they'd walk out and they'd got like 20 gold's worth of things for like 5 gold. And that was the whole premise of my character, sort of like everybody hated him on first sight. But then, hang on, when did he become our friend?
Which is fair enough, having a bit of a conflict. But it's fair to say most of your characters recently have been halflings and gnomes.
Yeah, but to be fair, there have been a lot of sort of like restrictions on what you can have and who they can be.
I do that.
2e, we had humans and halflings. 5e, to be fair, he was a gnome. He's a gnome. I quite like gnomes. They are funny.
The thing about gnomes is they're very good at making things, especially at medium levels. So that could introduce artifact or different different items that could lead to further ideas. So it's kind of the unassuming character that ends up having a quite a large impact in a campaign.
That would, it's sort of like my current gnome is a forest gnome druid, and basically he had quite bad rolls, so he had to go into Circle of the Moon just to survive. But now that he's sort of like got midpoint, all his spells have started kicking in, so he's actually starting to prove a fairly powerful member of the party.
Yeah, because the other thing about long campaigns is that it's lets these team dynamics play out over a longer period. Different players, different strengths, different weaknesses, and then suddenly one character pops up from the back with a either a fantastic idea or just a different approach to a problem.
So I'm just laughing at Michael's comment. I'm just going to throw this. I'm going to come back to Omen Owls, but how dare you leave that comment up for so long, killing me over here. You're lucky you seem to be a judoka across the planet. Yeah, yes. Yeah, you are powerless. You are powerless. It's He-Man, wasn't it? I have the power. But, yes. I miss my judo. I do miss my judo. I can't go back to it just yet, but I'll be going back to it. I've got some weight to lose. Got a black belt to wear. Right, where were we? Now, funny we mentioned the gnome. The thing about tinkering and making things hasn't really been possible for Brian, because I'm going to bring up this comment. Sorry, this one here. That gnome is currently deep in B4, the Lost City Goodman Games remake. There's not much option to make stuff down there. They're too busy trying to stay alive and deal with the crazed cults that are down there and the whole insanity of the whole Lost City.
So does that? I've not read that either. Is that an expansion of the original module? Is there a lot more material?
Yes, it is. I mean, I'm not going to go into too many details because Brian's still playing it, and there's quite a lot still to find. But it's a massive book, over 300 pages. It's got the original module in there in its entirety. There's background information about the making of it and interviews and stuff, but most of it is a 5th edition conversion of the original stuff, which is solid. There are things I don't agree with how they've adapted it in places, but I've made the changes myself to change things back at times. But what they've gone on and done is they've taken those levels that were below the original adventure and fleshed them out, and then they've taken the city itself, and about half of the book is the city itself, its occupants, loads of new areas, loads of new stuff to explore. There's tons going on down there.
Yeah, I was going to say we haven't sort of like dropped into a lot of it yet. Mainly because we'll turn around and say, can we do this? And no, because you haven't got a map for that yet. Go this way. I'm
going to come to that. The difficulty I'm having with running it, though, is because it's in one big hardback book, and there's a hell of a lot of maps.
Yeah.
If you think old D&D Adventures had probably 3 or 4 maps, this one has got 20 to 30 maps. And we're playing it through Roll20. And all of those maps are very much DM maps. They've got all the secret doors. They've got all the traps on the map. So you can't just scan them into Roll20 and use them for the players, because the players can see all of that stuff. So I have hand-drawn all of the maps, copied them, slightly adapted them in places, and scanned them into my computer. I haven't got a paid Roll20 account. Therefore, I have a limit to what I can upload. So unfortunately, the true sandbox of the nature of the adventure isn't able to come out because Brian's group are limited by which maps I currently have uploaded. I can't upload them all. I can't develop. I don't have the space. I don't have the time to have them all uploaded and pre-prepared with all tokens that you use on Roll20 and all of that in there. So I'm having to just sort of give them 2 or 3 options at each turn and say, well, so you can't do that bit yet because that map's not been uploaded. It is unfortunate. I'd love to run it at the table and have that freedom to be able to run the sandbox properly, but we just can't quite do it in Roll20, which is a shame. And that's my biggest criticism of the Goodman Games adventures is the way they've done the maps. I would love to have had a separate booklet of maps and adapt and the ability to have pre-made PDFs or JPEGs or whatever downloadable to be able to use online, because so many people play online nowadays.
Yeah, so, sounds like there's more additional information in the Lost City for the Isle of Dread. It's the same map with extra encounters, and there's also some further islands, small islands around, and it's kind of adding more depth to the existing geography, or bringing out more of the storyline. For example, the Nithians and some extra difficult creatures like there's a few dragons on there. So it's the same geography, but developed.
Yes, that's what they've done with the Lost City. And one of our group, Jordan, is currently running Castle Amber, the Goodman Games version,
right?
And done the same sort of thing with that. The original X2 Castle Amber is one of the greatest modules ever written, but it still had bits that could do with fleshing out. So I'd love to have a look at that Goodman Games book that he's got, because it's a sort of adventure that would really benefit from that. Just the same with Lost City, same with the Isle of Dread. But that's one of the beauties of those old adventures, is that there is that flexibility there, that those gaps left to be filled. And what Goodman Games have done to fill the gaps is mostly of very high quality.
Yeah,
it's not all perfect, but there's some really nice stuff in there.
Yeah, I'd like to expand the wilderness part of Castle Amber, and keep the family and the eccentricities of the family as the main story, but just generate some further ideas regarding the wilderness, and it could potentially be a very large area of wilderness that could potentially change as the players get further and further and deeper into this wilderness, possibly get a bit disorientated,
find themselves a forest oracle.
Forest oracle.
No, let's not go down that one again.
Seems perfect to me, John.
Now, this one here, the T1 to 4 Goodman Games remake, is the one I'm probably least interested in, unless they've somehow made it less of a behemoth to actually run.
I've seen some reviews of it. I've not looked at it in detail. It's something I would like to do, but it's on the list.
It's massive. It's 2 books.
Right. Yeah.
I know Jordan started running me through Elemental Evil, and we never got that far into it. Is that T1?
I think he was running Prince of the Apocalypse, which is the 5th edition version. It's a 5th edition adventure, which is inspired by the Temple of Elemental Evil, but it's not actually Temple of Elemental Evil. The Village of Homlet was the first part of the Temple of Elemental Evil series, but the subsequent modules never came out independently. They all just came. It was just all T2, 3, and 4 never really existed. It was also all bundled together in one big super module.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I would like to collect all the remakes. They are very solid. They are good. They are, from what I've seen of them, they're good. Goodman Games keeps the flag flying, bringing old adventures into modern gaming.
I'll have to have a look into that. I'll have to look into
Something
Goodman
that
Games.
need to accept is that no matter how much I love AD&D, all the cool kids are playing 5th edition nowadays.
Yeah, and I suppose it's a window for them who probably play only or mostly 5th edition, and they can they can explore some of the same ideas.
Yes, they can. Yeah. And I'll say now, I mean, I met Brian and all that group through playing 5th edition.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I dragged you all back to 1st edition, and a bit of 2nd edition, and a bit of MERP, and a bit of Paranoia, a bit of Call of Cthulhu, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I do like 2nd edition over 1st.
You prefer 2nd edition?
I like sort of like some of just the updates that they did to it. It felt better to me. But that's a story for another time.
There are some people who watch my videos that would string you up for that. So, DM James, if you're watching, Brian's your target for your next video.
Bring it on. Maybe it was just a problem with the DM.
Cheers. I would love to run. I would like to run the Lost City, the updated version, using 1st edition or basic rules. There's just a reason why we're using 5th edition, because it's easier to run online. And I did teach everybody all the mechanics of 1st edition on purpose, because I don't want them worrying about the mechanics. I want to be the one in charge of the mechanics. But running it online just makes it an absolute nightmare, absolute ball ache, because everyone would be asking all the time, "Oh, what dice do I roll for this? What dice do I roll for that?" Which is a pain.
Yeah, I've been play testing Isle of Dread, and the 5th edition parts that I've used, I have ended up converting them back to BECME first edition, and just because I like that rule set, but there's the conversion time, and then there's I'm not sure I've always got the balance quite right. 5th edition monsters with their armor class and attacks and damage rolls, converting that back into first edition. You kind of, they're possibly either too strong or too weak, and depending on how I don't know if there's a set way of doing it, but I've not found it. But it's a minor problem, but it's something I have found.
Plus, of course, I mean, if you're running the old school rule sets, then players should really adopt the old school mindset of running away. So, if you made it too difficult or too easy, I wouldn't worry too much. Just let them make sure they've got a chance to leg it when it all gets too difficult.
Yeah, well, that's definitely necessary. As I was saying before, you can't. It's not like a dungeon where it can be separated out into levels, where it's implied the further levels you go, the more difficult the monsters will be for the better treasure and magic items. On the Isle of Dread, there could be a cave of cavemen not too far away from a dragon, and there's a big step up there. So yeah, that's just something players need to bear in mind.
Yeah, we learned that one quite quickly.
the hard way
John will
off.
tell you he has never balanced his maps. If he looks at a map and goes, "There's a dragon there," you could be in the first town of the first combat, and there's a dragon there. And if you walk up to it, that's your nuts in the fire.
Sadly, I didn't have access for this one. I didn't have access to a photocopier for these maps. So mine, I suppose I could have scanned them, but I will one day upload the maps I did. I'm quite proud of them.
Oh yeah, you've always worked hard on your maps. So I can't say you never have.
I suppose city maps need to be more precise than wilderness maps, where you can perhaps be a bit more flexible. But buildings and streets,
Since we've never done like full on city, have we? We've done sort of like decent town sized and actually, yeah, no.
I've done some decent town maps. I've never really done a big.
Since we've never gone to like Waterdeep.
I mean, that's one I for the Saltmarsh game currently playing with Graham. That's if I can just get that.
You'll have to drop the.
That's one I drew. It took me about half hour. That's Saltmarsh.
Right. Yeah.
Not too.
Nice Saltmarsh.
Yes, good map, and there was an outline map of the house, which I suppose you had the same issue on a smaller scale. You've got to give an outline of the house, but you can't give the details to the players.
Yes, that's precisely why I did that. But it was to give you like a rough idea for when you're doing your own maps of what you're working with.
Yeah,
I am going to put this comment up for a reason. Adam has mentioned Mike is a big part of music. Mike is a big part of his life. Music is a big part of his life. Just to say that I had an email through this morning to confirm that I have a ticket to see Tool next month, and I am really, really happy and chuffed with that. Music is a massive thing with me, and I'll give it 3 weeks' time.
One the other way. The thing I was really happy to see is I've just seen War of the Worlds, sort of like and sort of like the proper thing. So I'm quite happy at that.
I say Tool are touring next month, and Placebo are touring towards the end of the year. So that's another band I want to see. Anyway.
I suppose as technology advances in the years to come, people will be combining games like D&D with various music and to set the atmosphere.
I already do.
Yeah.
With Roll20.
Right.
With Out of the Abyss, I've sort of found every song about madness I can, and just when they're loading up, they get a stream of whatever. And sort of like we've got ambience music and boss battle music.
Yeah.
See, I don't play with music because I get distracted very easily. I've got no background music. I've got no filter. So if I had music on now, I wouldn't be able to concentrate on what you were saying. So I can't play with music. I use music for inspiration, and when I'm listening to music, I'll have my headphones on and just lose myself in the music. And we did
make campaigns out of music, John.
I have made. Here we go, Brian. Here's James. James will not have a good word said about second edition.
Sorry, James, I like second edition, and I will not back down from that point.
At least it's AD&D, and AD&D has a certain spirit to it and a certain expectation to it, and they're both different versions of it. Yep, the young me would have found learning the new map making software a lot easier than the old me has found it. This is why I still hand draw things. I'm useless at using it.
No, I admit I like sort of like all the online bits and pieces I can find from map building. I cannot draw a map unless it's a straight line. Nah.
Yes, I mean, Goodman have done about
Yeah.
done quite a few. B2 was one of their big expansions, but I'm very interested in the Dark Tower.
Yeah. I think
Dark
the Dark Tower may link or be a possible link to the Nithians on the Isle of Dread. So that's on my list as well.
And what's the other Jackays module that's very highly rated? Its name escapes me at the moment. Oh, I'm such a module nerd usually, and I've completely forgotten the name of that classic Jackays module. I'm sure somebody's going to mention in chat. Anybody? Oh, what is it? There's an absolute classic, but I can't remember it. Caverns of Thracia. There it is. Yes, that's the one I was thinking of. That is the one I was thinking of. Yes. Janelle Jacquet is one of the classic module writers. I wish TSR had made use of her abilities. Yeah. Adam agrees with me on sci-fi good. And Omen Owl didn't like the original super module of T1 to 4. Yeah, I wasn't a massive fan of it either. T1's fantastic. 2, 3, and 4 are. Yeah.
I'll have to take your word on that one.
I'll lend you my copy sometime. There's some good ideas in there. It's just so much. It's just an absolute beast. It's just so much effort, making me sound lazy, but those who've tried reading it would understand. Back to the idea of modules that have a sparseness, that are location based, being sandboxy, being easy to adapt, to plug into campaigns. Yeah, it's the story modules that are difficult. So that question earlier, the hardest modules to adapt into a campaign, I could probably say some of the Dragonlance ones, because the story was just so linear.
Yeah, I think you kind of play those all together as a campaign, or you maybe don't play them at all. We played some of them, enjoyed them. That was a long time ago, first time around. But I know they're not everyone's cup of tea because of the feel railroaded.
I would steal the maps from them. There were some beautiful maps in them.
Yeah,
but that's as far as I'd go. Any examples of more modern modules they really enjoyed? I quite like A0, Danger at Dark Shelf Quarry. It's not perfect, but it's got a nice old school feel to it.
Right.
But in terms of, I haven't got many modern D&D adventures. I did enjoy. Jordan was taking us through Dragon Heist, which was quite good fun. But I can see the flaws in that one. That's a 5th edition one. It was enjoyable, but I can see the flaws in it. The biggest flaw being that it's set in Forgotten Realms. But most of my modern stuff is Call of Cthulhu. I tend to buy old AD&D stuff and current Call of Cthulhu stuff.
I think the modern stuff that, because like I say, I am the 5th edition guy. I am really enjoying Out of the Abyss. There's just a level of freedom there that sort of like you haven't got to worry about anything that's going on upstairs. It is just survive for the first half. My players are getting to a point where they can either go back in or go an adventure on the top, and I've got 3 or 4 adventures set up ready so that just in case they decide, no, we're not going back down. One of them being against the Giants.
Good, good old stuff. I mean, I've heard a lot of good things about Tomb of Annihilation for 5th edition, but most of that is because it's clearly inspired by classic old school stuff. It's Dwellers.
There's a lot of inspiration for some of the older stuff there.
Yeah, I don't disagree with Celestian GC here. Yes, the rules are organised much better. There's a lot more clarity in them, but there's a charm to the vague wonkiness of 1st edition, which is
there is. But like I say, I just preferred. From what I'd played, I preferred 2nd edition. I like the fact that specific people earn their XP in specific ways. So sort of like fighters got that bit more XP for fighting. The thief got it for stealing. I liked that element to it.
See, I do like gold for XP as a mechanic because it changes the focus of the players. It's not all about killing things, it's about getting hold of it.
But just sort of like, considering you're sort of like you've got it in writing that Rangers aren't worried about gold. If they've got to have money, they will take a few gems instead of. Gold suddenly becomes not important, even though it's the leveling mechanic of it.
Well, they say though that it's excess gold they're not interested. They're interested in. They'll keep what they need. And gold for training is considered to be gold that they need.
But it just does. It does. The 2 sentences don't sit right with me.
I can understand that.
That's the restriction on Rangers in AD&D, because I only found out about that myself a couple of weeks ago. So I didn't study AD&D in great detail. I played Beckme mainly, and a little bit of 5th edition now. But I suppose the intention was to balance out the skills of a ranger. That they do get they get some good benefits, and maybe the creators wanted to find a way of restricting them. But I suppose it's up to the creativity of the player to come to some agreement as how they're going to progress to mid levels, and how they're going to use their gold allocation.
Yeah,
sort of like because I had my ranger, and he just had his little personal purse, and we had like mainly because I hated the idea of carrying the loot sheet. I did not want to be in charge of the loot sheet, and so he would just have his little bit, his spending money, and the rest of it was with the party. And he went and I need to go level. I'm going to go train, and he would just go and raid the loot money. Is how I always did it.
Just for a bit of clarity with that particular group, I treated loot very much as a communal thing. I want to make sure they were all working as a team. Loot was very much a party resource rather than an individual resource. So they just had a communal loot sheet that all the party loot went on. And whenever anybody needed to train to gain a level or knew anything, they just took it out off the total, the loot total.
Right.
Just simplified things.
So this is when you're using the rules of paying to be trained. So I don't know if Rangers are able to give their gold away to their equivalent of a guild or an association. But what if this association agreed to train the whole group, and then the group benefits, and that was really going to help if you're on a wilderness campaign for different members of the group to have ranger tracking skills.
In first edition, though, training was very much down to specific classes. The idea was that each character, I mean, I didn't go into all this sort of depth, mainly because we were playing for a fairly short time on a Friday night. If it had been like 6 or 7 hours on a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon, I would have added this extra sort of depth to it. But we were playing for like 4 hours on a Friday night, in a very much a sort of like a relaxed manner. But the idea is in AD&D, a fighter has to be trained by a specific fighter. A ranger is trained by a ranger. A magic user is trained by a magic user. You don't get general training. It's you're meant to have
to know somebody,
some form of patron or some form of higher level NPC who you pay specifically to train you.
Right.
That's
isn't it monk? There's also things like monks and druids at certain level have to fight the guy who's the next level above them to earn that level.
Yeah. Yes, they do.
And you get things like minions from then on.
I mean, what I liked about the training rules is it keeps the party cash poor till about level 6 or 7. But there's also, it gives the players a choice. If you've got enough XP to go up a level, but you haven't got gold to pay a trainer, but you've just found yourself a magic dagger, do you go into the next adventure with that magic dagger while still at level 2? Or do you sell that magic dagger and train to become level 3, but not have a magic weapon? And
Times we even had to pick who was leveling up as well.
I like that having that. Yeah, you had to. Yeah, and as Brian says, sometimes they did have to choose who was going to level up at times.
I think we even used that as reason for some of the like why we had to go out. Right, I need to level, but two of us need to level, but only one of us has got cash. Okay, is there a short quest we can do to go and top up our funds?
Yeah. It's part of the point of adventuring. Anyway, where were we? We've chat has
we've gone completely off balance.
Chat has suddenly come to life. Oman Owl says the Beckme Wool Cyclopedia is good. Yeah. That is an excellent book. Excellent book. And everyone here knows my opinion of those old classic modules. It's why I've got I think it's 33 reviews of AD&D modules on my channel now. Stuart Webb asks, has anybody tried any popular modern OSR generic? No, I haven't.
No, I haven't.
Me neither.
We got to the end of our AD&D campaign. I then started writing something for second edition that we were playing. And then Mike bought Horror on the Orient Express. So we started playing that. And then COVID happened.
Yeah.
So we haven't gone back to...
and then sort of, as is the way, sort of like new jobs, new background things. And so everything got shifted out, didn't it? So
yeah, I mean, two players got new jobs and new shifts. We've got new family members. Which is what that was for you, Brian.
That was me. Yeah, I started fostering, so I suddenly hadn't got the sort of like the ability to just be out every Friday anymore.
And so that group, unfortunately, we're now playing. The 4 members of that group and 2 others, but playing online on over Roll20 on Wednesdays or Thursdays at the moment, typically.
Yeah, it tends to depend what we're all free.
But that's the Lost City campaign, and my self-written stuff and whatever. If John wants to run something, we're looking at other options as well.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna. when I look back at the chat later, I'm going to make a note of those and see what I can see. Because I need to read through some other adventures, and I am going to say now, I never planned to make any money out of going on YouTube, but I'm currently getting, in order to monetize, you have to get 1,000 subscribers and be getting a certain number of hours of views over a certain period. I'm getting those hours of views. I thought that would be really hard, but I'm about 400 subscribers short. So all of you, if you could all make ghost accounts and 5 or 6 accounts, click subscribe, then I can probably, because at the moment, when you watch a video, Google, YouTube forces you to watch an advert. I don't see anything from that advert. Google, YouTube, Google, or whoever makes the money from the advert. So if you all make fake accounts and subscribe me up to 1,000, I can monetize and I can earn 2 pence a day, which I'll put towards buying new stuff to review. Because that's what I earn, 2p a day. It's not a right lot. Anyway, that's a long way off. Michael's going to see. This is clearly not Michael McDonald from the Doobie Brothers. He's going to see Iron Maiden. I don't see the Doobie Brothers and Iron Maiden really being the same sort of thing. Yes, we've started DM. This is one of DM James's talking points at the moment. First edition and second edition. 2E 80% out. Yeah, it is. Soft level caps sort of came in around Unearthed Arcana where they softened those. Attribute caps, yeah. I quite like attribute caps and level limits, but there were differences in reaction rolls, surprise, and initiative. And even though I like the way first edition encourages teamwork with group initiative, there is something to be said for second edition's initiative system where it actually properly brings in things like speed factors and casting times. I'm not. I would like to run some combination of the two, but I've never really worked out the best way of doing it. I think Osric might have got a decent option for that, but ever check out Barrow Maze? I started playing in a Barrow Maze game. This is an occasional online game. I was a player, thoroughly enjoying it, and it just sort of petered out. I know the guy who was DMing it was running it for another group. I don't know if it was a time thing. He's doing his own YouTube stuff nowadays, making stuff, and doing rather well doing that. So check out the Crooked Staff. That's Chris. Makes some really nice stuff. He's the one who made my Ye Olde Geek logo on my homepage thing. He's very creative, very clever.
Chris is.
He is, yes. He also knows more about Tolkien than Tolkien himself. Halakha, I do apologize. I only decided I was doing a live feed at about 5 o'clock when I realized I'd been really lazy all day and not done a video and had nothing to do a video about. So I just thought I'd do something. So good evening, Halakha. Good evening. And what about some of the new old school modules? The only one I've really played of the new old school ones is A0, Danger at Dark Shelf Quarry. If I can earn 2p a week out of this channel, then I might buy some more of the new old school modules, and I'll inflict them on Brian and the rest of the group at some point, and maybe review them.
No, I think the next load of money I'm going to be spending is on the Goodman game books, having a look at those.
The Goodman game books.
Yeah.
Well, they're worth it. They're worth it.
So so I'm going to be saving pennies and smiling sweetly for a while.
For XP, I agree about tying it to GP. Yes, I do XP by carousing in 4th edition, where every GP is spent on prestige stuff. Yeah, every GP is spent on prestige stuff. Yeah, I quite like that.
See, I'd like that would, to my mind, that would work something with like a political intrigue one, where you've got to spend a bit of money to get into like the royal sort of like spies and assassination attempts. And you've got to spend the gold to look the part and buy wine for the Duke, and I could see that working quite well for
contacts and ladies.
Yeah, so I've been watching like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy on telly recently, so I am really in the mood for like a political intrigue storyline.
Okay, I'll bear that in mind for Lost City. I did loot communal XP, and it was fairly spread out, just like Monsters. Yes, I did the same. I know in 1st edition AD&D it does talk about loot being XP for loot being specific to the character that keeps certain items, and if a character chose to sell an item rather than take rather than have the party XP for it, I did allow characters to get a little bit more XP here and there. But in general, if the party found an item and shared out the treasure all together, they shared the XP. Yes, James.
I think that's the communal. I do that as well, and it's you've got, again, it's about the balance, because let's say, for example, you've got a couple of fighters that it looks like they're doing most of the work or a lot of the work, but then the thief pops up at the from the back and finds an interesting piece of information, or they avoid a trap, or they approach a problem in a different way. That can be worth quite a lot to the group.
Cleric's Bless spell can provide bonuses to the fighters, which can turn a combat. The magic user can suddenly drop a sleep spell at the perfect moment, or cast Comprehend Languages to find out a key snippet of information. It's all contributing.
I was going to say, with a couple of bonus GM sort of like this rule of cool element, I think my thief felled a giant.
Yeah.
Had him spend 2 rounds climbing up his back, stabbed his sword straight into his back, caught his heart and dropped him. Meanwhile, the parties are fighting a smaller giant and doing badly.
I do that sort of. Dave Graham, you noticed on Saturday, I wasn't running 100% by AD&D rules. I was adding in little bits and pieces just to try and make mechanics feel as if they were working with the game.
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't notice at all. I think it's, I mean, didn't take away from the flow of the game or the story. So yeah.
Well, the one, I mean, I was using things like ability checks. There are no ability checks in first edition AD&D. It's something that started appearing in modules. It was mentioned in basic D&D, and it really came in sort of around second edition. But in the first edition books, there are no ability checks. But I was using those sort of things just to resolve little instances, such as, do you fall through the rotten floor? Okay, maybe a dexterity check.
Yeah,
just little things like that, things that fit the moment. Anyway, what dear James says here, I give XP for the total gold recovered. Nothing to do with the total gold a PC keeps. But I think the point we were making with that was regarding training with Rangers. About Brian was saying it felt a bit weird that Rangers were supposed to give away a lot of their treasure, and yet they still had to pay for training and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I total gold recovered is what gets you the XP. You get that gold back to a safe place. It doesn't matter whether you keep it or not. If you get that loot back to a safe place, you get the XP for it.
I found it evens itself up quite a lot on the Isle of Dread as well. I mean, in the 5th edition encounters, some of the mid-level monsters don't don't have that much gold, but then there's other stashes or magic items that are relatively, easier to come by. So it evens itself up, and then you've got the question of how are the players going to get their gold back to a safe place, because they've probably accumulated quite a bit once they've been even around half of the Isle of Dread. Is that when they get it back to the ship, or do they take it back to the mainland and try and trade in their gems? And what are they going to do to protect their gold from the pirates in the area? So it depends how much of a challenge you want in that area as well.
What I've done in the Lost City is it is basic D&D levels of gold by default, which is massive, much more than you need for 5th edition, without any training rules, nothing really to spend it on. And as I said in my video I did the other day, yesterday I think it was, on experience and leveling, I want to try and get a balance between XP for monsters, encounters, for loot, and for general sort of progress. And in order to get that balance right, I've divided all of the default XP in that adventure I've reduced it by 80 to 90%. They are still getting a lot more treasure than they know what to do with. Still having to try and get it back to safety, still having to stash it somewhere. Yeah. Some of those loot hauls of like 4,000 electrum pieces. It's like, no, these are 4th and 5th level characters. They don't need that much. In basic D&D, they did, because of the balance of the way XP was done. But in the way I've adapted it for 5th edition to bring in the loot for XP, you don't need that much. It's about 40%, 20% is about the balance I've got. And it seems to work. It's slowed down leveling to a more bearable level for me, where they are still making a decent amount of progress. It's probably about 10 sessions a level, roughly, I'd say. Is that right, Brian? Ish?
Yeah, I'd probably say that, because we're hitting I think there's a few of us who've hit that point where we're going like 4 to 5 to 6, and it's been a fair slog up. So yeah, I would say probably about 10 sessions is about right.
But that's about 3 times the expected leveling rate in standard 5th edition. But that works for me, because that's one of my biggest gripes about 5th edition is the speed with which the characters level. No sooner they get a new ability than they don't really get to use it much. They're already heading towards the next level.
Yeah, I enjoy the sense of steady progress and enjoying the progression up the levels, because you do get quite some interesting additional abilities from going up through the levels, and you combine that with magic items, and so there is a sense of progress, but I wouldn't want that to be too quick, just for the sake of getting extra attack rolls or whatever it is.
Hello, basic expert. I have looked at that sort of thing, but I effectively have 3 jobs, so I don't have time. I work in a shop pretty much full time. I run a pub quiz every Sunday night, and I also have a database that motorsport events in the UK use to seed their competitors. And in the last few months, I've been doing about 1 event every 2 weeks, which takes about 12 to 20 hours to do. So, Unfortunately, I wish I could. I wish I could go part time in my day job and do that sort of thing, but I can't. And I feel a bit guilty having some sort of subscribe star and not offering anything more than just doing videos of me talking rubbish on YouTube.
I think as I don't know anything about Subscribe Star, but as long as you know, as long as users know what to expect, you know, I'm sure it will be fine.
I don't know. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I mean,
Yeah.
I never set up this channel to make money in the first place, anyway. But we'll see what happens. See what happens. I mean, never know. In a year's time, I might have 20,000 subscribers, and I might be able to retire. I wish. It's not going to happen. Let's be honest. I talk about old school stuff. If I get to 1,000, I'll be happy. When I got to 100, I was happy. When I got to 50, I was happy. Yes, Gregory. Yes, Gregory. I have a feeling some people do shout outs. I get the occasional blip, the occasional jump of 20 or 30 on random days, which is always nice to see. XP values for magic items, yes, making them in second edition, figuring them out, using them in first edition, yeah.
That work. That's nice. Apart from when you get like a necklace of choking, when you killed Richie.
Yeah, he killed himself. He found a skeleton contorted with a ugly-looking necklace around its neck. So what did he do?
Put it on.
I'll put the necklace on. Yeah. It was just like one of the characters on Sunday night, Saturday night. There's a mouldy looking.
The mould.
Yes. So what did he do? He poked the cloak. Oh well. Yeah. And up to about 6th or 7th level, the characters stay cash poor. Training is a perfect cash sink.
You could almost link the loot storage to some of the intrigues we were talking about early. So at mid levels, characters have maybe got to decide, you know, what their attitude to paying taxes and you know how close do they want to be to the local officials in the nearest town, how you know honest do they want to be with all the things that they've found in dungeons and not in wilderness. Do they spend time getting information and getting to know some of these officials, and in return some of the townspeople could kind of sponsor or oversee their missions to make sure that their money still is in the bank when they get back from the Isle of Dread or whatever. So you could expand that as a plot line as well.
That sort of links in with what Omen Owl says here. Characters are expected to hire NPCs and build castles as money sinks. Yeah, supposed to get involved in the world. Brian's group would never hire anybody.
No, we never did.
You never did. You never. I did drop a few hints to. We were never interested, but they were in the process of redeveloping the moat house, and I had sort of costed up how much it was going to cost, but then they all died, so it didn't happen. It didn't happen properly.
You gave us a deck of many things. You deserve what we got.
Dungeon Land gave you the deck of many things. You insisted on from it. Those were the backup characters.
Yeah, so my two characters are still technically out there. Just one of them's 6,000 feet underground in an impenetrable bubble. Cannot move, cannot see, cannot do anything. He's just there unless somebody finds him.
And the other one got lost in...
teleported and put in the Underdark.
Yes, yeah, that was in G3, yes, yeah. Do I give XP bonus XP? Yes, I do. I do.
Come up with a good plan, or somebody does something particularly heroic.
There's an extra 50 or 100 XP.
Yeah.
Have it. Enjoy. My party found a workaround at one point for the massive piles of coins. Yes. Yes. Dump it all in there. Now, in the DCC game I've been playing on Saturday nights, sometimes we have a little vote at the end of every session.
I was going to say we did it for. I don't know whether it was in one edition, first edition, or second edition. We sort of like if we felt somebody had done something, we'd sort of turn and say, "Look, have you got something for?"
I have played around with that idea before. I have when I don't always want to be the one who gives out that bonus. I sometimes say to the group, "Is there anything you think is worth extra XP tonight? You can't vote for yourself."
Yeah.
And yeah,
I think there should be like a bonus 10 XP just for the poor guy who's rolled the worst all night.
That'd be John.
That'd be other John. That'd be hilarious. Poor guy never catches a break.
What about a bonus for the best character voice or Dungeon Master NPC voice?
We'd never win that because our
something I'm
accents
hopeless at.
travel. Our accents travel. You cannot hold. None of us can hold a Welsh accent for fear of ending up in the Middle East. It goes Welsh, Indian, Russian, German, dodgy French in the space of 2 minutes.
I can do dodgy French.
You started dodgy French, yeah.
I'll do dodgy French. I can do dodgy Southern American drawl as well. And that's about it. My Italian's terrible. My Welsh is terrible. My Irish is worse. I'll try them. I'll try them all. I have no shame. I'm jumping ahead a little bit now. Yeah, skill-based systems aren't D&D, but they can be great fun in themselves. Call of Cthulhu, you never get any more hit points. Your skills get better. You can still get downed by a single shot. That's how it should be. And this one, yeah, I love rings, especially the Ring of Contrariness. I do love the Ring of Contrariness.
Oh, my poor druid. My poor druid.
XP for GP only bloats the XP tables. GP bloats XP and the need for XP. I suppose it does. So you can reduce the GP requirements, but you have to divide all the XP requirements by about 10 in those old editions if you're doing that. Otherwise, you'll be going on forever. Yeah, first, no GP for XP in AD&D. The problem with it, though, is it changes the focus of the game. If you're giving out in AD&D, that would just be, well, first edition, you'd just be giving out XP for monsters. So everything becomes something to kill. And I like the idea that they're not always out to kill everything. They're not always out to beat everything. Nicking the 1,000 gold piece ruby is worth a lot more than killing the 5 orcs that are guarding it.
Yeah, so like one of the things that I have carried over to my games from like 1E is you don't need sort of like 1E had the thing of so long as you settled the encounter, not killed the encounter, you got the XP for it. And I do sort of tend to carry that with me.
Now, deck of many things appears when the DM is sick of the camp. Yeah, well, that can happen. The problem was I was running that, it was part of that classic module campaign I was running. And in my infinite wisdom, I decided to have them play through EX1 Dungeon Land. And in that adventure, the Mad Hatter has a deck of many things. and so and he's mad. So yeah, Eric does make a point here. You gave XP for solving an encounter rather than only killing people, but it's I do give out XP for simply encountering things, but I find the mindset of the players is that things need to be fought and beaten. And it's more the mindset I want to change. So I like the idea of them avoiding fights wherever possible. I like them contemplating whether encounters are worth taking on without predominantly thinking of, if we encounter these creatures, they're worth XP.
We had that one encounter where there's 2 red dragons living in a cave.
Yeah.
And for as much as we sat there and went, maybe not, maybe another day. And then in the end, we could never get back to them.
I have mentioned that's in UK4 when a star falls, and I think it's the only bad encounter in the adventure.
I think you have monsters like that where you come back to, for example, the dragon. You go away somewhere else, get a bit more, experience under your belt, and then come back and tackle the dragon. And then you've got monsters such as the dinosaurs on the Isle of Dread. I think the idea is, for me anyway, is not to strip the island of dinosaurs, just to gain the experience points from it, because you may want to develop or colonize the island later on, and it's going to need its own balance, its ecosystem of creatures, where if you've stripped it of life, that's not going to happen, or something else is going to be attracted to that vacuum.
I can honestly say, sort of like with Isle of Dread, so long as you gave me a saddle for one of the dinosaurs, I promise you I would keep as many dinosaurs alive as I could. I tend to like playing druids, and I will challenge people as a druid if they start killing beasts.
Yeah.
You've bought Isle of Dread, haven't you? It's one of the few.
I have got Isle of Dread, yes. I haven't read it in a long time, but yeah, I did start looking at maybe running it, but got onto other things instead.
Here's one. Yeah, XP bonus for whoever wears the most outlandish outfit.
Jordan didn't even get XP when he proposed to you, John.
Yeah. Maybe I should have given him a bonus for that. He wasn't wearing out.
Video of that. That's what we put on your, what's it called? We put out videos of sort of like Jordan proposing to you in your subscribers only page.
Yes, that was
Funny on the knee and everything. Even borrowed my wedding ring to do it.
Right. I am going to wrap things up in a bit because
I was going to say I've got to head off soon.
2.5 hours.
That means the holidays.
I was going to say I agree with what Michael says here. GP for XP incentivizes exploration in the best possible way. Exactly, and then you have the logical GP sinks that it doesn't bloat too badly. And I think that's what first edition AD&D got right with training, because I think some of the modules got things a little bit. Some of the series of modules got things a little bit wrong. I did harp on about it in the Desert of Desolation reviews that Tracy Hickman clearly wasn't thinking about training rules and wasn't thinking about how XP worked when he wrote them. They're great adventures, but the mechanics need working out. And Bromos is just basically saying thank you to us here. So yes, thank you for being part of the chat, Bromos. Thank you for joining in. So I'd like to
Bromos, if you ever decide to start playing N1, I will play that game with you. No, N2. Sorry, John. N2.
Forest Oracle.
Oracle. Yes, I will play Promise's version of Forest Oracle.
And one last thing here. Yes, the amount of gold provided, Dungeon Masters can tailor the speed of advancement. And that is that. Yeah, you're right. I do that. I freely admit I do that.
Yeah.
I've slowed them down in the Lost City with the advancement by reducing the gold, but I didn't want to have them lumping thousands upon thousands of gold pieces around in a game world that I've created where there's not a massive amount of golden treasure in the main world. So,
yeah, and we've also got that balance of when we finally get out the temple, we've got to pay our taxes basically to a giant dragon who's waiting for us to come out.
I have put that. There was an emerald dragon waiting for them to come out of the Lost City. And she wants
50%, wasn't it?
Oh, 50%? You think you can get 50%?
I'm sure that's what you told us when we went in.
Oh, you think she'll stick to that? I don't want to.
I think we'll be high enough level to start picking them, sort of like causing trouble even away.
Oh, right, okay. Then we have a challenge. Anyway, I want to say thank you to Graham for joining in.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Everything was at short notice, so thank you for diving in. And Brian, I didn't expect anyone to join in tonight, so I thought it was just going to be me rambling. And so thank you for Brian for popping in as well.
When you said it was about linkages and all, you got to come in and put your tuppence in.
It was for the first hour, and then we've rambled for the next hour and a half.
We always ramble. It's why we work.
So we will be playing Lost City tomorrow night, I believe. I think it is scheduled.
Yes, Lost City tomorrow night.
And in a week and a half's time, I'll be playing Secret of Saltmarsh again with Graham. And
that's right. Yeah,
I never do. I might do a video based on how they approach the module. I might just have a few notes I could use.
I have told you I will happily come and be a bonus voice for that game. You know where I want to play.
I know, yeah. Well,
I will come play. I will come do some NPC voices.
Right. Anyway, but thank you all for contributing in chat as well. Thank you for the channel. Thank you for all the positive, nice things that people are saying. And if you've got unpleasant things you want to say, I've got thick skin. I don't care. Just tell me to my face. If it's something you don't like about what I'm doing, just say it. But thank you once again for joining in. And I'm going to end this broadcast any second now. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.